What's up, guys? I know it's been a while, but I am so excited to be back here making videos for all of you. It's been a crazy month, but I'm finally moved in, settled in nicely here in my dorm, so now it's time to start making a lot more content. And today we'll be reacting to Teen Speaks Over 20 Languages. This was the video that really got me into language learning. I haven't seen it in a couple years, but I still remember to this day this amazing feeling of astonishment that I felt when I saw this video for the first time. So it's definitely a video that I think everyone that likes to learn languages should see. But without further ado, let's get into it.
العربية كمان لغة القرآن.
不是因为太吵了.
Вы говорите по-русски с семьей?
По-русски родной, фарси, потому что я этих тоже
What truly surprised me when I first watched this video is how many language families he truly covers. He just seems to jump seamlessly from one language family to the next, like Arabic, Russian, Urdu, Pashto, you name it. And you'll see just how he did it in just a sec.
I feel that language gives you something with which you can connect to another person.
अब जो अच्छा इस किताब के बारे में यहाँ पे लिखा है ये किताब कुदरतुल्लाह शाह की खुद नविश्त है एक और
नविस क्या है? Writer?
खुद नविश्त
Oh, was written.
about his own life.
Oh, okay.
They say that one of the true signs of intelligence is asking a ton of questions. And I think this is why Tim made so much progress in so little time. Because he wasn't ashamed to go out and speak when he didn't know much of the language, and he certainly didn't let himself sit in ignorance when he didn't understand what someone else said. He simply asked, they answered, and now he learned something new. It's a quality that you need to develop as a language learner, no matter what your personality type is.
Each language is in many ways an expression of how one society or culture thinks. I feel that when I start to speak foreign languages, a lot of times I become a bit of a different person. Perhaps I say things that I wouldn't necessarily say in English. Perhaps I'm more deferential to others, or perhaps I'm more upfront about what I say.
Yes, absolutely, and this is completely a cultural thing. Like in English, in the USA, for example, we're very polite and we kind of dance around and beat around the bush about what we want to say. Like we use all these fluff words that really aren't necessary, but they're perceived as polite, so we do it anyway. But in languages like Chinese or maybe even Dutch, for example, people are a lot more direct. And that's partly why some stereotypes rise up about people from other cultures being rude. They're just saying things in English like they would say in their own languages, and it's just perceived as rude in our culture, but in their culture it'd be completely fine. And that's one of the toughest things to understand if you don't study languages yourself.
Привет.
Здравствуйте, молодой человек.
Добрый день.
Добрый.
Как вас зовут?
Натан.
Натан. Натан.
Тебя как зовут?
Привет. Я Тим.
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 Очень приятно.
Очень приятно. И откуда вы?
Polyglot is a word that comes from two Greek roots, poly and gloss, or glottis, which together means many tongues, many languages, and it just refers to anyone who speaks 3 to 4 languages or more at a pretty high level.
The term hyperpolyglot, that's the people who have a commitment to learning and maintaining a lot of languages.
That's the key, maintaining a lot of languages. It's actually fairly easy to study a lot of languages as long as you have the time to do so. But even if you achieve like an intermediate or even advanced level in a language, it can get really rusty if you don't practice for a while. So you can imagine how time consuming it can be for these people that learn like 10 plus languages to maintain all of their languages on a daily basis. It's damn near impossible. But then there are a few special people like Tim, Moses McCormick Laushu, rest in peace, Richard Simcott, and others that are just so dedicated to the art of language learning that they spend hours upon hours a day just maintaining their languages. Something that is very unrealistic for a lot of people.
Most of them really put in a lot of work on it and take pride in knowing these languages.
那可以不可以养宠物？
我真的不知道。
你真的不知道？
可是如果你给我钱，你就可以。
真的吗？啊，好好好，那我得。
I'm really comfortable having a conversation on more or less any topic in French, Arabic, Hebrew, and Farsi. I think maybe a tier down would be Chinese, German, and Russian. I've done a fair amount of Latin and Greek in school, but that's obviously a different skill range for dead languages. I'm pretty comfortable speaking in languages like, Hindi or Urdu, Indonesian. With a little bit of practice, I feel, confident again in languages like Turkish, for example, or, my Italian's not so great, but I feel like I can understand it pretty well. And then there are languages that are a little bit more dormant or that I haven't studied for a while, languages such as Ojibwe or Yiddish or Wolof or Hausa, and then languages that I'm more or less a beginner in, such as Japanese and, Dutch, a couple others.
That is absolutely extraordinary. Look at just the scope of his language ability. And not just the language ability, but the cultural literacy he must have to learn all of these languages. Just think about that. He can empathize and put himself in the shoes of most of the world's population. And if he were to learn like Portuguese and Spanish, for example, that's pretty much the rest of the world, excluding Africa and other languages in Europe. Absolutely amazing.
The languages that we speak as a family, it's really not that impressive. Ezra and I studied French for many, many years, so we can understand French people who are slowed down incredibly.
I lived in Hong Kong for a while. I studied Cantonese, but studying 20 hours a week for a summer, I didn't make anywhere near the progress that Tim made studying 20 hours a week, for example, Persian.
فکر میکنم که پردازش ترین بخشی از یاد گرفتن فارسی فهمیدن تاریخ و فرهنگ ایران است.
In North America, we mostly
I love how Tim puts a big emphasis on the culture and the history of the languages that he's studying, because it's something that's not really looked at very often when you just look at someone that speaks a bunch of languages. Normally, it's not just about the language, but more about understanding people in general. This is not some sort of circus act or party trick, but the chance to be a part of something a lot more profound, understanding foreign people.
learn one language as we're growing up, and that language gets to be so good that it interferes with our learning other languages. Tim Donner's talents in the American context are extremely unusual, particularly at his young age. The hyperpolyglots one tends to hear about in the world are older as a rule. So coming up with people who've started really in high school doing this, extremely rare.
Yomu. Yominai? Yomanai. Yomanai. Okay.
There's another thing. Look at how he just brushes off his mistakes. At first, it's so easy to dwell on something when you make a mistake. You think, oh, I should have known that, or oh, I'm so stupid, why did I... But Tim just brushes it off, makes a note of it, and moves on. That is another amazing quality of the amazing language learner that is Tim Donner.
I find that most of the time when I'm starting a language, one of the most important things to do is have a lot of audio input. So I generally start out with any sort of series, and I'll try to just absorb the language as much as possible. I think by repeating to yourself over and over, it's a really good way to train.
This is known as the input hypothesis, and it's widely considered to be the best way to learn vocabulary, is just to kind of throw yourself into the language, immerse yourself into it, and just overall letting your brain get used to the sounds and the syntax and the structure of the language. It's a lot like working out, where at first you may not see results for a certain amount of time, but you still have to do it every day or every other day. Consistency is key.
Tim will watch movies. We've seen many movies in Farsi and movies in Arabic.
Watching TV shows or movies is really helpful in any kind of language learning because it exposes you to the normal rate of speech in a language and maybe a more colloquial register than you get in a textbook. I think it trains you also to be able to comprehend a lot more. You know, I find that when I start a new language and I start watching TV in it, after I'm comfortable enough, maybe I'll understand 4 or 5 words out of 10. And then that really helps because that bleeds over into conversation. So I think watching TV is really the basis of learning in a lot of ways. Plus it's fun.
Oh my god, look at that old YouTube layout. He completely forgot about this. I really wish he still posted videos because he is just so inspiring.
I think the internet has been absolutely crucial, for me for learning languages. Anytime I have a new language, I try to post a video of me speaking it with someone or just me delivering some kind of monologue to the camera. And the responses I get are really helpful. They show me, which direction I should go in, what I have to work on still, what I've done well, and that's fantastic. I think the great thing about living in New York is that you really can practice any language.
Yes, he's a fellow New Yorker.
Language you want. This is arguably the most linguistically diverse spot on earth.
It's so true. You can walk down like any street in New York City and hear like 10 different foreign languages being spoken. You pretty much have the whole world in this one city. So arguably the best place in the world to learn languages.
Mais non, malheureusement, non. Et ils ont pris français à l'école, mais non, ils parlent seulement anglais.
Vous êtes un génie, monsieur.
C'est pas vrai.
Oui, c'est ça. Parlant. Parler 20 langues. Ce pouvoir communiquer avec toute cette langue. Oh mon Dieu, c'est fantastique.
Merci.
For me, there are plenty of things that are fascinating about languages. Primarily, it's the fact that, as a bit of a history nerd, you can see in any language the entire history of a people and its interactions with others. For a while, when I was around 12 and 13, I had a very big interest in learning about the Middle East, especially the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I thought that by learning a language, I might be able to break through the wall that's been built around it. A little bit after my bar mitzvah when I was 13, I started to teach myself Hebrew.
עברית הייתה השפה הראשונה שלמדתי אחרי אנגלית. אני התחלתי ללמוד לפני שנה וחצי.
They already touched on this a little bit, but this is so unusual in the American context. Because if you want, you can just speak English, and that's it. There's no need to learn any other language as long as you don't want to travel or experience life outside of the US. So to have that prerogative at 13 to just say, okay, I'm going to go learn a completely different language is so unusual and really speaks to his curiosity, which is another great quality of a great language learner. Constantly being curious is a great source of motivation, always.
After I learned Hebrew, I thought that, I maybe would be quite successful in teaching myself languages. So after that, I decided to try Arabic to get the other half of the equation in the history of the Middle East.
بس يعني كمان كيف العلاقات بين المسيحيين والمسلمين في مصر دلوقتي؟
ما كانش كويس مش كويس عامة مش كويس.
وحتى اليوم. I feel that by studying languages, by looking at their development, by looking at what's old and what's new, you gain a greater appreciation for society's values and for just its entire history. It's something that's a little bit hard to communicate and may sound a bit disingenuous, but that's sort of the breakthrough that I had in studying it.
That's another thing is, what kind of 17-year-old uses the word disingenuous?
There's this idea that seems to circulate, which is completely false, that Americans don't like learning about other cultures, Americans don't like learning foreign languages.
Alors, Manuel, c'était vachement un plaisir de faire votre connaissance.
Moi aussi, monsieur.
I hope that, I can do my part to disprove that.
Et j'espère que vous parlez plusieurs mots, d'additionner plusieurs langues.
Exactement. Alors, la langue prochaine, le créole.
Oh, ouais, oui.
Au revoir. Bonne journée.
That is something I hear so often from people that I speak to in other languages, is once they figure out I'm American, they go crazy. Because many of them have never heard of an American that's even interested in other cultures or languages. When in reality, that's a huge stereotype. There are tons of people here that love immersing themselves in other cultures. But with the advent of the internet, I think we're slowly but surely changing that perception. We'll see what happens in the next 10 years or so.
I think if you raise people with other languages, you open them up to foreign cultures, to foreign ideas. And again, in the future, in a world that's increasingly globalized, you give them, a solid opportunity for more connections as they grow older. There's a quote from Nelson Mandela, which goes something like, if you talk to a man in his second language, you're talking to his brain. If you talk to him in his mother language, you're talking to his heart.
Abso-freaking-lutely. It only takes one word, just one word, to completely make someone's day in their own language. It's something that garners instant trust and camaraderie, this special form of solidarity between two people. And if you learn a new language, you not only can be a part of that, but open yourself up to a completely new world.
इंशाल्लाह आप बहुत आगे बढ़ेंगे और मुझे बहुत उम्मीद है तुमसे और मैं बहुत खुश हूँ इस लैंग्वेज को चुना है और अल्लाह तुम्हें कामयाब खुदा हाफिज Thank you very much.
I'm Tim. وأنتم بتتفرجوا على Thinker.
And that's it. And again, it's not the quantity of languages that Tim has studied that has made him this incredibly intelligent person. It's the way he goes about the process, how he looks at language as a medium of exchange through other people, to be able to understand each other, to create mutual understanding between cultures through language. Not to use as some sort of circus act or party trick, or to teach your friends swear words at the next college party, but to foster genuine connections with people of other cultures that may in the past have held some sort of animosity for each other, or to build on already strong relationships. That's what language is all about. People. I'll see you next time.